The 10th round of the Formula 1 Championship was completed successfully at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, Spain, handing over one more victory to Max Verstappen. However, he wasn't able to clinch that victory in a much more dominant fashion as he has done in the past. Compared with the rest of the grid, it was McLaren drivers who appeared to possess the most powerful challenger. Welcome back to Total F1. Through this video, we are going to tell you how the race in Spain unfolded in detail. But before we proceed, hit the subscribe button and smash the bell icon for more exciting updates. Let's begin with action in the free practice sessions. Under the bright, sunny weather which prevailed in the circuit, the majority of drivers started unleashing the full power of their machinery to get an idea about the track limits. McLaren drivers appeared to be comfortable with their racing setups, setting some fast laps since the beginning of the session. Lando Norris was the fastest driver of the session, with a lap time of 1 minute 14.228 seconds. Fans were focusing more on the performances of Ferrari challengers, as both of their cars experienced double DNFs during the last race in Montreal. At the end of the session, Sainz was able to record the third fastest lap. However, Leclerc's best effort was good enough only for P11 in the final standings of FP1. Even though Verstappen and Perez were able to finish the session as second and fifth fastest drivers respectively, Verstappen appeared to be unhappy with his setup as he experienced an issue with his clutch. Most notably, Verstappen came to this race with a new power unit as Red Bull decided to use one from the permitted quota. After experiencing retirements in the previous two races, it was important for Perez to make a good comeback in Spain, as his poor performances badly affected the championship standings of the Red Bull team. Meanwhile, Fernando Alonso red flagged the session for a brief time period, as he lost a part of his front wing after brushing the curbs. Meanwhile, Alpine driver Esteban Ocon complained about an unusual tyre degradation in FP1. Haas continued their research with Oliver Behrman by giving an opportunity for him to drive Nico Hülkenberg's car in FP1. Mercedes drivers started to show off the real power of their challengers during FP2, and Lewis Hamilton easily topped the timesheets with a lap time of 1 minute 13.264 seconds. Sainz and Norris were the second and third fastest in the session, behind the 7-time world champion. The current championship leader Max Verstappen was unhappy with his Red Bull setup once again and started complaining over the radio. The Dutchman was the fifth fastest of the session, and his teammate Sergio Perez completed the session as P13, creating an uncertainty over his performance once again. The rest of the session unfolded without any major incident, and FP2 gave clear evidence that the top 4 teams will fight for the victory in Barcelona. Drivers brought their cars into the track on Saturday morning for the final practice session, with the aim of fine-tuning their machinery ahead of the qualifying. Ferrari driver Carlos Sainz appeared to be more comfortable with the conditions in his home Grand Prix, and he topped the timesheets with a lap time of 1 minute 13.013 seconds. Charles Leclerc, who was in the other Ferrari, was the third fastest of the session, giving clear evidence that the Ferrari engineers have found solutions for the problems that they encountered in Montreal. McLaren driver Lando Norris continued his fine run in Spain by being the second fastest in FP3. However, some contact happened between Leclerc and one of the McLaren cars when the Monegasque driver tried to overtake. Lando Norris complained about damages to his McLaren Challenger over the radio after that incident. Despite the minor issues in his RB20, Verstappen was able to complete the session as the fourth fastest driver, just 0.074 seconds behind Sainz. The Mercedes duo completed the session as fifth and sixth fastest drivers in the final practice run. There was a close competition between the drivers of several teams to escape out of the elimination zone in Q1. Both the Williams drivers, Albon and Sargent, were trapped at the bottom of the standings, clearly exposing the lack of pace in their challenger. VCARB drivers, who delivered some pretty decent performances over the last few race weekends, were also knocked out, as their best attempts were good enough only for P17 and P18 in the final standings. Another driver who failed to cross the first hurdle in qualifying alongside these drivers was Kevin Magnussen. The Alpine team, which struggled a lot a few weeks ago, appeared to have solved a majority of their problems, as both of their drivers gave a good fight into the second part of qualifying to reserve places within the top 10. Both Ocon and Gasly were able to advance themselves into the final part of qualifying. Both the Aston Martin drivers struggled to qualify for Q3, as their AMR23 Challenger clearly lacked the performance to move out of the elimination zone, so both the Aston Martin drivers were knocked out, alongside with the two Kick Sauber drivers and Hülkenberg. The final part of the qualifying was a pure 5-team battle, and every driver unleashed the full power of their challengers, with the aim of reserving a higher spot in the starting grid. Even before setting a competitive lap time in Q3, Piastri went off the road, damaging his clean lap, and since then, he didn't take part in the rest of qualifying. Both the Ferrari drivers tried hard to beat the fastest lap time set by Verstappen, however none of them was successful. Sainz's lap time was good enough for P2, but within a brief time interval, that time was beaten by his teammate Charles Leclerc. Then Verstappen was able to improve his lap time further in his final attempt. However, it was not sufficient to secure the pole position, as Norris was quicker than any other driver in the final run. The lap times set by Hamilton and Russell during their final attempt were not good enough to beat the lap times of Norris and Verstappen, but the Mercedes duo reserved a higher position in the starting grid than Ferrari drivers with those lap times. That means the first 3 rows of the starting grid were occupied by Norris, Verstappen, Hamilton, Russell, Leclerc and Sainz respectively. They were also followed by Gasly, Perez, Ocon and Piastri. Even though Lando Norris was the pole sitter, he might be the person who experienced the biggest stress in that starting grid, as he had to share the front row with the current championship leader Max Verstappen. Since the start, Norris and Verstappen were involved in a close fight for the race lead, so the McLaren driver used all of his experience to defend the attack from the fast-moving Red Bull. However, he forgot to look at his left side mirror, and Russell took the maximum advantage of that by choosing the outside path to overtake both Norris and Verstappen when the pack reached the first corner. That was an incredible move from the Mercedes driver to take the race lead. Then Verstappen completed his move against the McLaren driver to second spot, dropping the pole sitter to the third spot. On lap 3, Verstappen launched his attack against the race leader with the assistance of DRS. Russell was not ready to hand over his position without a good fight and went wheel to wheel several times before the overtake was complete. Meanwhile, Sainz tried to overtake his teammate, Charles Leclerc, but suddenly, Sainz went off the track and drove through the runoff area, creating an advantage over his teammates. By investigating the video footage, it was found that Sainz left the track after a slight contact between the two Ferraris, and for that reason, no penalty was imposed on the Spaniard. When it was lap 12, Verstappen was able to improve his race lead over Russell by 4.5 seconds. Russell was the first out of the top 6 to enter the pit lane on lap 16. However, it didn't go as planned, and he suffered a slow right rear tyre change, costing a few extra seconds. But Russell was lucky to rejoin the race ahead of Carlos Sainz, who entered the pit lane behind him. That costly mistake allowed Norris to improve his position up to second. On lap 18, the race leader Max Verstappen also decided to enter the pit lane, handing over the race lead back to Norris. Hamilton made a tight inside move against Sainz at turn 1 on lap 19 into the 6th spot, and later it was found that a slight contact happened between these two drivers while trying the overtake. After taking the maximum out of the first set of tyres, Lando Norris decided to enter the pit lane at the end of the 23rd lap. He rejoined the race as 6th with a fresher set of mediums, and it took some time to pay off those fresher, younger tyres. This move put Leclerc into the race lead for a brief moment, as he was yet to make his first pit stop in the race. When he also decided to enter the pit lane, Verstappen retook the race lead, and he was 5 seconds clear of Russell, Hamilton, Sainz and Norris. Meanwhile, Norris was able to improve his position up to 4th by making a clear move against Sainz on lap 27. He was also able to set the fastest lap of the race up to that point too. Piastri, who was also in a similar kind of strategy to Norris, was able to make a clear pass against Sergio Perez into the 9th spot. Further, Norris made one more move against Hamilton on lap 32, improving his track position up to third, and it was a very easy overtake for the McLaren driver. At the same time frame, his teammate also made similar progress up to the 7th spot by overtaking both the Alpine drivers. On the 35th lap, Lando Norris tried to attack George Russell with the aim of improving his position up to 2nd. First, he made the move at turn 3, but he failed to hold his position as Russell made a good comeback in the next corner by overtaking him. They went side to side several times as neither Norris nor Russell was successful in making a clean move. Russell was in a super defensive mode to protect his track position. However, when they reached turn 7, Norris was able to create an advantage over Russell, completing his overtake into the 2nd spot of the race. At that moment, Verstappen was 9.452 seconds ahead of Lando Norris. And Sergio Perez, who was experiencing one more bad weekend, was able to improve his position up to 9th by making an easy move against the Alpine driver Esteban Ocon. After staying behind his teammates throughout the race, Lewis Hamilton made an easy move against George Russell into the 3rd spot with the DRS assistance on lap 52. Then on lap 55, Ferrari drivers swapped their track positions, allowing Charles Leclerc to move to the 5th spot of the race. On lap 59, Alexander Albon went off the road and had a journey through the gravel trap. However, he was lucky to bring his car to the racetrack without experiencing any major damage to his challenger. At the end of the 66 laps long race, Max Verstappen was able to cross the finish line, recording his 61st Grand Prix victory in his Formula 1 career. Even though Norris was able to close down the gap with Verstappen down to only 2.219 seconds, he wasn't able to catch the Red Bull driver before completing 66 laps of the race. So he completed the race as the runner-up, after failing to convert the pole position advantage to a race victory. Lewis Hamilton was able to record his first podium finish of the 2024 season with his 3rd place finish at Barcelona. Till the last moment, there was a close battle between George Russell and Charles Leclerc for the 4th spot of the race. However, Russell was able to cross the finish line ahead of the Ferrari driver by maintaining a gap of 0.389 seconds. Sainz was able to complete the race as 6th after swapping positions with his teammate. Piastri was able to push his challenger up to the 7th spot ahead of Sergio Perez. The last 2 point offering spots were occupied by the 2 Alpine drivers, Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon. The victory of the Spanish Grand Prix was clinched by Verstappen, truly due to his impressive skill set and strategic brilliance of his race engineers than the performance of the RB20 car. McLaren's MCL38 has become an almost perfect and well-balanced racing setup over the last few weeks, and it won't be an easy task for Red Bull to record victories in the upcoming races. That's the end of our race report, and we have brought you every important moment of the race back to your attention. How do you rate the Spanish Grand Prix? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel to get more exciting Formula 1 news. And we'll see you in the next video, guys. Goodbye.